Thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited to show you this recipe for Rosemary Almond Flour Flax Crackers. These are really, really, really good. And the nice part too is that they're so simple to make. The whole process from mixing them together to baking them should take no more than about 17 to 20 minutes. So I mean, they are so quick to whip up, and this is just a wonderful addition to lunches for kids or for adults alike, or great snacks after school. So they are really a great delicate cracker. We're focusing on ingredients today that help with brain health and in terms of increasing learning, increasing memory, pretty much everything that has to do with brain health. So I have a couple of key ingredients that I will highlight as we kind of go through. So first ingredient we're looking at is this is almond flour. So this is made by taking almonds that are blanched, which means they're soaked in water, and then the skins are removed, and then they're pulsed down into this really fine, delicate flour, okay? Almonds are really heart healthy. They have a lot of really wonderful fats that are great for the heart and just overall. Also a really good source of protein. And so unlike most crackers, these crackers actually provide a good protein source, which makes them an ideal snack. Almonds are really high in minerals too, and so a great source of minerals. Minerals like magnesium, potassium, calcium. Almonds are really good sources of those as well. So we're taking 1.5 cups of this really nice delicate almond flour and adding this to the bowl. And our next ingredient is flax seeds. So I have here two kinds of flax seeds. We have your whole flax seeds that are here, and you can see that they are little teardrop, very, very hard seeds. These seeds cannot be used in this form and need to be ground into this form to be used. And so what I'm going to do is I took these seeds right here and I ground them in a spice grinder or a coffee grinder that's dedicated for spices and seeds, and it pulverized them down into this. If you have a very high-powered blender, you can also grind the seeds in there. I chose flax seeds for this recipe. Flax seeds are a really fantastic source of fiber. One of the particular compounds in flax seeds is called lignans, and lignans has been shown to be very protective against breast cancer. So that's a nice bonus. Flax seeds are also a natural plant source of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are wonderful at reducing inflammation in the body and increasing learning, right? So it's really critical to give high omega-3 fatty acid foods to children during their peak developmental ages and kind of as our entire lives. You know, we're always learning, and so they're really great that way. So I'm going to mix these two flours together. Okay, wonderful. And now to spice these up a little bit. Really, the sky's the limit with the types of spices that you want to add to these, but today what I've chosen, in addition to salt, right, we always nice salty crackers, I'm using a really coarse salt here because I like that flavor when we're when you bite into a cracker and there's distinct salt granules. So I have a really nice coarse sea salt. That's wonderful. And then I'm also using rosemary, and so I've taken whole rosemary and powdered it down into this really bright green powder. Rosemary is a very strong herb. It has wonderful medicinal properties. Rosemary is known as a circulatory stimulant. What that means is that it increases blood flow. And the place where rosemary increases blood flow the most to is the brain. So we say it's very specific for everything above the neck. So rosemary is great for enhancing memory, and it increases blood flow to the brain, and so we use it a lot in terms of preventing cognitive decline, and it actually has natural mood lifting properties, so it's wonderful for depression as well. The spice level of rosemary in here, you can kind of vary a little bit. If you'd like a more heavily spiced rosemary flavor, I would add about 3/4 teaspoon. And if you want just a very light rosemary taste, I would do maybe just a 1/2 teaspoon. So that is completely up to you on how you'd like that spiced. Okay, I'm incorporating the rosemary and the salt into the flax and the almond flour. Those are incorporated well. So now we have our dry ingredients. Okay, our wet ingredients, very, very simple. What we're gonna be doing is extra virgin olive oil, okay? Olive oil is a really wonderful fat. It's really heart protective. It has a wonderful flavor, so it's a really great pair with rosemary. Olive oil is one of those ingredients, so we're gonna use a tablespoon. Olive oil is one of those ingredients that it's really, really important to buy organic. A lot of chemicals that are added to our foods these days have an affinity to kind of attract to different fats, and so any type of fatty product is going to be important to buy organic. So we're using organic olive oil. And then water. So we're going to start with 3 tablespoons of water, and then we're going to see if we need a little bit more. Just gently start mixing this together. Now, flax, having a lot of fiber in it, it oftentimes will just completely swallow up the water in the recipe, and we may have to add a little bit more. So we'll see. So you're just going to keep mixing this and mixing this until a light dough forms, and that it's something that we can handle with our hands. I like this recipe too. A lot of cracker recipes have eggs in them, and so there's going to be an expiration date if you're adding a fresh ingredient like an egg into a batter. This is a vegan cracker, and so the shelf life, whether you refrigerate these or not, is actually going to be fairly long. So that's a kind of a nice bonus of not having any eggs in this recipe. Okay, so let's see if this is tight enough. So the way you tell is that you take a little bit of the dough and you want to start just to form it in a ball and see if it holds well. It's still just a little bit crumbly. You can see that it's not holding too well. So I'm going to add just a little bit extra. I have about a half a teaspoon extra water in there. And let's incorporate that. You could do this recipe in a food processor as well if you didn't want to do it by hand. It's very quick. Okay, so now let's see if that helped. Yep, so much more solid dough is being formed. So what we're going to do now is get all of this into one ball. You can do this in batches too if you like. That good dough together. Okay, so now you have one kind of solid dough ball here. And now what we're going to do is I have 2 sheets of parchment paper over here, and so I'm going to separate them. Okay, let's move all this out of the way. Okay, so we have our parchment paper laid down. Parchment paper is really nice because it doesn't stick, and so we're going to place our dough ball right in the middle and just kind of shape it a little bit. And then we're going to roll it around. I'm taking a second piece of parchment paper and placing it right over the top. Okay, and now I have my rolling pin, and we're going to roll these out. These are pretty rustic crackers, and so you know, you can work as hard as you can to get perfect edges, and it probably won't happen. So keep them rustic. So separate these. Yes. So those are looking really good. A little bit thick on the sides. Transplant that. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust a little bit here. Get this one nice and in. Okay. Okay, so those are rolled out. Then the next step is you just remove that top parchment paper. Parchment paper is great, just save it for later. You can just put this in a plastic bag for the next cracker recipe. And then take your cookie sheet, and then all we're going to do is slide this on here. Okay? And then that's how we're going to bake it. Now you can cut these into any shapes that you like. Ideally using a pizza cutter is really nice. Again, the ones on the edges are going to be a little bit more rustic, but as we cut towards the center, you will get your perfect little squares that we're all used to with crackers. And we're going to rotate this and now go the other direction. Okay. All right, so these crackers are ready for the oven. So I'm going to put these in the oven at 350 degrees. Depending on the thickness, it's going to be about 9 to 11 minutes. What you want to just see is a very light brownness. You'll start to see it around the edges, and then they'll be done. Okay. All right, so our crackers are done baking. So let's get them out. You can really smell the rosemary. see how the edges have browned just a little bit. And so these will basically take about 10 minutes to cool. And then once they cool, you will be able to break them apart like this and have perfect little squares of crackers. And so these can hold up to dips and are just really great to eat on their own. So let your food be your medicine.